beautiful early spring day. We get tastes of weather like this before it turns nice for real. But so, like, what is it today? It's like March 16th. So if you were to come here in August, all these beds all around would be big rose bushes, and all the fence areas, I don't know if you could see how there's hearts on the fence. See how there's like hearts on the fence? See that? Like, if you were to be here in a few months from now, all of this would be big bushes and the vines would be covering over the fence and everything. And that's kind of what I want to talk about, is in order to get the results that they want to achieve with this garden, which is like an ongoing, sustainable, beautiful garden, it requires a lot of active pruning of unnecessary growth. So as the bush goes through its cycle every summer, it gets like long and lanky, and it blooms all the roses and it looks real pretty. And then as it goes through the winter and dies, if they were to leave it long and lanky like that, the next year it would start to basically turn into a vine. And instead of having nice manicured rose bushes, they would have this gigantic entanglement of rose thorn vines everywhere with no differentiation as to like each specific plant. They're all named on plaques. Like, for instance, like this bed may have one or two distinct phenotypes of a rose in there, and the next bed will have a different kind. So it's not only is it necessary to prune them so that they can stay contained, but it's necessary to prune them so they can maintain their own identities. Because what would happen is this species would start to grow and entangle with this one, and the mix of flowers, and then they might cross-pollinate, or I'm not really sure how it works, but the bottom line is you're not going to have any kind of order. And the way to create order in a garden is you have to do regular maintenance and pruning. And what are you pruning? You're pruning branches that are getting too far away from the center. So, like, check out this tree right here. It has one trunk, and then it has several branches, and then all the way down to the edges it's got really little tiny branches. Okay, so something you could talk about like this is like all the different dog names and personalities, and oh, I have a poodle named Charlie and he does this when the door barks, or I have a German Shepherd named Bo and he does this on walks, and he don't like when people talk in a deep voice. Like, all these different things of dog behavior all over this whole tree all come down to one basic thing, and at the end of the day, that dog is an animal. They're all connected to the same source. They all have the same inherent traits, and you will have your best, strongest connection to them when you relate to them at their most core element, which in this case would be the trunk, which is the animal nature. It doesn't mean that we don't enjoy all the beautiful expressions of different dogs' personalities, but at the end of the day, the way to be really fair for them and to enjoy the most beautiful relationship that we can have with a dog, we want to keep it at a foundational level, always in the back of our mind that they're an animal and we want to communicate with them as such. So getting back to the pruning, this is something that without implementing these same philosophies in our own personal lives and in the lives of like our relationship with our kids or our dog, we're going to experience the same overgrowth and unproductive consequences of that lack of discipline. Because it takes discipline and energy to come out here and cut them down. And you know, as long as you have a well-established bush and you don't cut it all the way to the trunk, you can't really harm it too much. But it does require a certain kind of technique and knowledge. So how does that apply to dog training? Well, it applies to dog training in the sense that, like, you have to consistently be monitoring how your dog is really feeling and what potential subtle behavior patterns that aren't positive might be starting to creep into their repertoire. You want to prune these behaviors away before they become problems. And what happens a lot of times is I'll work with a client and we'll get their dog to a really good space, like the dog is completely transformed, no real evidence of prior negative behavior, and we can usually get the humans on board enough that they can kind of maintain that momentum. And then, you know, I'll go about my business. And what'll happen a lot of times is, because I don't disappear when we're done working, I'll follow up. If I don't hear from somebody for a couple months, I'll shoot them an email or a text and say, hey, you know, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any thoughts or concerns about how it all, you know, is going for you guys. And a lot of times that invitation will open up a line of communication where the client will contact me and say, hey, yeah, everything is going really good, but sometimes maybe this happens, or sometimes maybe that happens. And we'll have a chance to discuss, you know, what they're going through, and usually we'll be able to fix it really easily right over the phone. So what my point is that the reason why they've gone from having the balanced dog to a little bit issue maybe here and there is because they've become negligent with their pruning, meaning like they are not recognizing the subtle signs of problematic behavior as they begin to arise, and therefore the behavior is blooming into a tangible thing that they can have and see in the reality and have to deal with. For instance, if you have a dog who is too maybe curious, and I'll use the word curious because people will say they're aggressive, or, you know, like if your dog wants to react to other dogs as you're walking with them on the leash, and I have other videos about this, but this is just an example right now of being proactive and pruning behavior before it becomes problematic. If I have a client whose dog would pull ahead or growl or stop and stand their ground and become a problem the closer the dog got to us, well, the way to fix that is to show the dog a new way of being, and then once they're familiar with a viable alternative to consciously choose, and they've gone through it and they feel that it's adequate, it's up to the owner to initiate that decision in the dog's mind well before a problem arises. So let's say I'm walking with a dog who was formerly reactive and they're behaving good, but they're still, you know, in rehabilitation, which is sometimes takes a long time. My strategy, and what often is, getting back to the point, is what the owners fail to recognize is how encompassing all this is that as I would notice any change in behavior in my dog as we were approaching a situation that would in the past have been a trigger for my dog, I would just initiate like a correction relative to the dog's state of mind. So like if the dog's ears perk up and it starts to act like it's loading up a spring to want to have some kind of reaction, I would just say, hey, or something of that sort, just to snap the dog out, get the dog to make eye contact with me so that we can reestablish basic communication. And then as we proceed, the dog's state of mind is going to be focused more on me and not in that fixated nature of wanting to fall back into their old behavior patterns. So that's like a quick example of like how you would like prune behavior on a dog that you're, trying to help. This tree is super rad. It's not in full bloom yet, but you can see the little buds coming up. It's a cherry blossom tree, I think. It was technically planted by the guy that founded this town, and I like to check it out every time I come down this way because it's pretty amazing. It's actually wider than it is tall, and it has all kinds of support cables running through it because its lateral growth is so heavy that it will actually disrupt. It could actually split its own trunk because some of these side branches are really heavy. It's all roped off and fenced off, and they built this little garden around it. But back in the day, you could just roll up in it and like sit up in the little Hobbit fort trail things. And I mean, you could get like a small circle of people up there and just sit and hang out on a nice evening. And that's what people were doing, and it was stressing out the branches even further so you could see like a support. And it's just another metaphor. It's like, even when this is such an established tree and super strong and solid, it still needs support. So and that's the mindset that I try and like cultivate in my clients. See, here's a bunch of examples where they prune these bushes literally back to like a stick and a few leaves. Look at all those thorns. Wow. Spiky. So you can see like each bed is its own thing. So if they were to get them like all stringy and viney, then it would be a real problem. And it's the same thing with your dog. Instead of thinking of long vines that are mixing together, just think of like general boundaries, right? Like, oh, your dog is like stepping on your feet while you're trying to cook dinner, and if you drop your fork, he's going to like lick the fork before you can even reach for it. Those kind of boundaries, just really simple things around the house that you don't want to let your dog be in the habit of like pushing the pace, So, but yeah, don't be negligent of pruning behavior from your dog, and you will have so much more success than if you were to just casually overlook what might seem to be relatively benign indications that your dog is slowly but surely slipping back into old behavior patterns. Because that's what will happen if you are not consistent in your projection of guidance to the dog as it goes through the process of learning. Learning is something that has to kind of sink in. We might grasp a concept and actually be able to implement it right away, but in terms of like long-term reformation of actual true habits, that takes a little while to kind of bake in, and we want to be very fair with our animals at all times. So after they go through their initial training, which is exposure to the opportunity to decide one course of action or another, and through encouragement and guiding them through how to make the right decisions based on different factors, we put them in a position then to implement these changes in a long-term way. But we have to provide them with consistent guidance, or else it's just too much of an ask. It's too big of an ask for your dog to just train it one time and then you go back to your normal behavior, and you expect the dog to magically stay in this new way. And unfortunately, that's usually not how it happens, because the reason why the dog was exhibiting the behavior in the first place is probably relative to their relationship with you in one way or another. Therefore, if you're not somewhat committed to making some changes in your habits and the way that you focus your awareness as you go throughout the day and interact with your dog, whether it's in your house or on a walk or wherever, then it's not fair to ask your dog to just stay in this new positive way of behaving, because there's no tangible interaction with you that demonstrates that you're changing. So, got a little traffic jam, got a little doggy, and so that's kind of that, you know. It's dog training is all about give and take. The reason that I make these videos is because sometimes we might be struggling with something that seems complicated, but sometimes all you need to do is hear a certain thing in a certain way, and it'll kind of just click. I know that's how it works for me. I could hear somebody tell me something 5 different times, and then one time somebody will say it a certain way, and it'll just resonate with me all of a sudden. So that's kind of how our brain works, and that's kind of what motivates me to make these videos. There's not a whole bunch that I'll really say that somebody out there hasn't said already. I don't know if there's one cohesive person that has, you know, said all the same stuff I've said, but everything I've said, pretty much somebody has already said it at some point along the way. So my goal is to just provide this information in a style that will resonate with some people, because at the end of the day, all I really want to do is help people be able to be cool with their dogs so their dogs can relax. Alright, hope you enjoyed the little springtime walk through the Owen Rose Garden here in Eugene, Oregon. It's a pretty rad place. A lot of people do weddings here and stuff. It's really nice. So, pretty amazing. Alright, thank you for watching. If you have any questions about your dog, please reach out. Please check out my website and make sure to click on the link and check out my ebook. It's packed with information that is pretty awesome. Spent a lot of time on it. It's got some funny cartoons in it and whatnot, and it's probably not what you're going to expect from a dog training book. Watch some more of my videos and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thanks again. Enjoy the day.